Turning now to Erik Prince, the former founding head of the military contracting firm Blackwater. Several of the group's contractors were convicted of killing 17 Iraqi civilians in 2007. Prince, the brother of Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, has since sold the company. During the election, he also supported and financially backed then-candidate Trump. Now he reportedly has a new goal in mind, setting up Blackwater-style training camps in China. Aram Roston is with me from Washington. He's an investigative reporter and editor for BuzzFeed News. He's also the author of the recent piece detailing Prince's latest efforts titled A Chinese Blackwater. So, Aram, first of all, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Let's establish who Erik Prince is and what his relationship to the president is.
Erik Prince is a famous, and some would say notorious, businessman whose business model involved war. He set up Blackwater, which is a very famous company now. It was originally was for training, and then it began contracting to the U.S. government, doing all sorts of things. It protected American diplomats in Baghdad, it protected convoys in Baghdad, and it did more covert type operations, really hardcore kinetic operations, as they call them, in Afghanistan and Iraq. And he became very successful at that. It was a massive business during those heady war, that heady time in the war on terror. He's also, of course, from a very important family and a Republican family, and he became a very active donor to and supporter of Trump. He's had his problems here in the United States because the CIA, which used to be quite close to him, has tried to distance themselves from him. The military has tried to distance himself from him. He's had a series of really, I could say, chaotic endeavors that emerged in the papers. I could list them for you, but it's an interesting thing to find him where he is now, and a close proximity, perhaps, to the White House. And
the fact that his sister is now the Secretary of Education, as you point out, that family is a longtime Republican family, and they've donated a lot of money to Republican causes and to the president.
That's right.
And you've asked the White House for a response to this piece. They haven't responded, but when you spoke to the group, which is called Frontier, they gave you a statement. Mr. Prince and Mr. Trump know each other and share mutual respect. That's all it said.
Yes, that's what they said. In other words, they are saying that they know each other, that they share mutual respect. They didn't say how they know each other, where they met, but it is clear that Prince knows Stephen Bannon very well, or not very well. He's done quite a few interviews with him on Breitbart. And his associates say Prince has discussed his relationship with Bannon. Now, obviously, his sister married into the DeVos family, which is another prominent family. So you've got that connection as well. Ideologically speaking, there may be a huge tie as well.
So this organization, it's called the Frontier Services Group. They've denied that they are going to be the new Blackwater. But in your piece, you say that he's looking to set up these two Blackwater-style training camps in China. So what's his vision, and how could that pit him against the president?
Well, it's complex, right? I mean, the president has in many ways hinted at a trade war with China. He's spoken very strongly about China, and some of his nominees have been very strong against China. So now here comes Prince. Prince is the chairman of a publicly traded company called Frontier Services Group, which is trades in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Until now, it was supposed to focus on logistics, on transportation in Africa and other places, helping Chinese customers. And all of a sudden, it began working towards something else. My sources told me it began saying it was not just going to do logistics, it was going to do security as well. And security, when Erik Prince is involved, often tends to mean military operations, because they're talking about very remote, harsh environments. And he said he's going to establish two forward operating bases, one in the Yunnan province and one in the Uyghur region of China. And sources were telling me what he meant is he's going to set up a kind of private army, a private company that would staff up and train former Chinese soldiers to act as a private military company for Chinese enterprises overseas, wherever they go.
Could that potentially violate U.S. law?
It could indeed. It varies. Chinese law wouldn't, American law wouldn't necessarily affect U.S. law wouldn't affect a Chinese company, of course, but U.S. law applies to U.S. citizens, and he's a U.S. citizen. And that's where it's very difficult to understand what he's doing, because potentially, if it involves security services or military services, there's a very strict ban usually on providing those to China.
A former associate of Prince's is quoted in your piece as saying he's hell-bent on reclaiming his position as the world's preeminent private military provider. What are his personal motivations as you see them?
Well, what that person meant is Prince feels like his company was in a way stolen from him. He feels the Nisour Square massacre in Baghdad, where a number of his people were convicted, or Blackwater people were convicted of killing 17 Iraqi civilians in this wild, wild shooting. He feels that he was in the right, that Blackwater was in the right. He feels it was all unfair, there was unfair publicity and so forth, that had forced him to shut the company down and sell it. So people who know him best say he believes firmly, ideologically, that private companies have a role to play in war and military operations. And that's what that person was referring to when he says he's trying to reclaim his place as a preeminent provider of private military services.
And I should point out that in your piece you do say that the company, the Frontier Services Group, provided a statement. They strongly disputed that the company was going to become the new Blackwater. They insist that all of their security services were unarmed and therefore not regulated. It's a fascinating article. Aram Roston in Washington, thanks for sharing it with us.
Thanks so much.